Guisbert-Williams, and my job title is Project Manager, and I work in the North American Logistics Operations Department at Eli Lilly and Company. So I would say that the growth of biologics has definitely affected my personal investigation into ocean shipping, because the data temperature profile of these molecules is much tighter than that of other cold chain products, and the allowance for excursion is much shorter. So we are looking at tighter options in packaging and temperature control and monitoring in order to make sure that we don't sacrifice the integrity of the material. It's been great. I was just sharing in my talk that I've learned a lot. It's really nice to be in a meeting where it's so focused on cold chain materials, and there's so much technology and new advancement in temperature monitoring and vibration monitoring, humidity monitoring, a lot of the GPS monitors and everything. I'm excited to see all this technology with that encompassed in one instrument, in one small logger. So being able to streamline things, I think, is really exciting, and I've met a lot of people that I wouldn't normally have access to in my role in Indiana. All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about our air-to-ocean conversion planning that we've been doing at Eli Lilly and Company, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana. For those of you who don't know about us, as I've walked through the vendor area, we've had interaction with a lot of the people in the vendor area, but our headquarters are in Indianapolis, Indiana, but we have offices all over the world, and I interface with our international partners. So I am fairly new to the logistics arena. I have been involved in logistics since 2011, but my background is actually chemistry and project management. So I wanted to start with a few just visual representations for you of what we are dealing with when we talk about air-to-ocean conversion. So here are some pictures actually of what a vessel looks like that transports our material via ocean and the containers that go on the vessel. These are reefers that actually ride on the back of the chassis. Self-contained and self-temperature regulated, so they are run by a genset, which is the picture below the container, and that is run on diesel fuel or electricity. So it's simple as plugging it into a 230 volt plug to run in our docks or bays, or on the vessel with their loaded deck or above. So they plug right in on the vessel and they run on electricity across the ocean. The journey depends on where it's going to, but it can be up to 21 days long. So we want to ensure that power is maintained throughout the voyage. Just a few pictures of our quantities. We're shipping pellet quantities in these studies and in the shipments in the planning for the future. And you can see a little bit about our covers, and I'll talk through that later inside of what a reefer looks like. And just a little bit about who we've worked with. I work at the North American Logistics Operations in Indianapolis, but we partner with packaging, quality, regulatory engineering, operations, traffic export, laboratories, molecule stewards. There's a huge team of us that have worked together on this effort and moving forward with the air-to-ocean transition. We have also partnered with other companies. Merck has led the way in this forefront, and we've learned a lot from them and other companies that launched into the ocean arena before we did. Modality Solutions has also been instrumental in helping us with protocol and report preparation. Q Products supplies our thermal covers. They're a small company out of Chicago, Illinois that we have used, and Kuehne+Nagel is the freight forwarder that we're using to move our material. So I started this journey in 2015 after reading about some of these studies going on at other companies and the savings involved and some of the environmental impact. Started this in October of 2015 with some chamber studies that we did at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. Partnered with them, and we actually simulated loads of material, 18 pallet loads. We do only single stack this material because of the nature of the vials and the different packaging. We loaded 40-foot reefers and temp-tailed them, and I'll walk through a little bit of that further in my talk. We went for a worst case scenario, so we actually stressed these loads from 0 degree Fahrenheit to 115 for different time intervals, simulating what we would expect to see across the journey across the ocean. The farthest lane that we had at that time was to Australia. That's a 45-day lane, back and one way and back, round trip. So what we did was simulate that. We used a leaf spring truck and air ride chassis to simulate both types of over-the-road transport, as we monitored shock and vibration as well with a Lands Mount Saver unit. We used Sensitech temp tails to monitor our temperature across the journey. You can see here are some of the details about the pallet quilt, how it's made. It's a breathable pallet quilt with a reflective surface. Although these pallets are always inside the container and protected from light, it's still that the top surface helps maintain the temperature underneath. If you're not familiar with how one of these reefers work, the airflow actually comes from underneath, comes up from the bottom of the pallet, and then we have the breathable sides of the covers that allow exchange of air between the pallets and on the side. These are center loaded with airbags and load bars to secure the load. So this is a little bit of information on the Saver unit. I won't go into too much detail with that. It is self-powered. We use a lithium battery. We did run into some small challenges shipping that because of lithium battery guidelines and shipping regulations for those. It has a battery life of 90 days, so we're able to document the shock and vibration across the road, as well as during the loading process at the dock. The container is taken off the truck, plugged into a bay, and then loaded from a crane from that bay onto the vessel, then across the vessel, and then the reverse process when it's dropped off or brought back. It's not uncommon to have vessel-to-vessel loading, so change of vessels on the other side of the ocean. We did have at least 2 of those events in these runs for a worst-case scenario. We had those changed in Melbourne and Sydney, Australia. So we were able to document the movement there. We also used a Smart Tracks portable Locatrax on our first run for GPS monitoring and location. And we also monitored our temperature with a Locatrax unit for the first run, for the first test study that we did to Australia. Since then, we have moved to Sensitech temp tails and Geo temp tails for GPS monitoring and temperature monitoring. The Locatrax is kind of a neat unit. It mounts to the back of the reefer. It clasps to the door handle, you can see, to the rod there. Can withstand the ocean conditions, the salt, the water, the humidity, changes in temperature. The one challenging thing about the Locatrax is that it was a little more expensive to use back and forth. So we started looking at different options, and we have now moved to the Geo temp tails, which work on a GPS satellite ping. So some of the transition rationale that we use to move forward with this project, Lilly tends to be a very conservative company, and our most important interest is maintaining the integrity of the product. And with the products that we were shipping from 2 to 8, the data temperature profiles are pretty tight, and our biggest concern was making sure that we could maintain that temperature. So to move forward, we presented a business case and looked at the changes in the cost of logistics. So when we moved to this process from our prior process, we looked at the changes in packaging, what we would need to maintain temperature, the reuse of some of the items, which I'll talk through here in a bit, the changes in loading, personnel, time requirements. We discovered that we would have about an 80% cost savings in logistics only. That does not include workforce or employee planning. We also saw a decreased carbon footprint. We're not putting out emissions into the air. We're plugging in as much as possible. We very rarely run these on diesel fuel. We're reusing our covers 10 times. So they are a $150 cover. We have a cleaning process that costs $35 per use. They're sent back to Chicago, Illinois, where they are cleaned, recycled, sent back to Indianapolis, and we reuse them 10 times. So $15 per use. And we had, prior to this, been using EnviroTainers. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And also what we saw was much less shock and vibration in the ocean process than we see in our over-the-road and air loading process. Also, of course, our packing supply requirements were much simpler. So the validation study took place in October 2015. We trucked that to Long Beach, California. That's our longest road route from Indianapolis. So we took it out the west coast. You can go out of several ports in California, Long Beach being one of the largest ones, tends to have the longest wait time. If there's holidays, sometimes you might face a wait of 3 or 4 days in port before you're loaded onto the vessel. So we chose Long Beach. We sailed to Australia and back, about 45 days, using the data temperature profile of 2 to 8. We monitored everything for compliance. We used the USP guidelines and our data temperature profiles that our quality organization has put together. We use the Landsmont Saver, like I said, for shock recording, and then the Locatrax for our GPS and temperature monitoring on the first shipment. So, since then, since October of 2015, we now have launched validated ocean shipment processes to Pakistan, to Fagerstein, France, and to Japan. Now, these are all Lilly affiliates that we're shipping to, and we have 3 to 5 additional countries, 2 European countries and 1 Asian country planned for 2017. Currently, we are in the process of validating this ocean transition for biologics. So for biologics, the data temperature profiles is tighter than the material that we launched initially. The material that we used for our initial study is a 2 to 8 product that Lilly has been shipping for as long as I've been at the company, longer, and has a very stable profile. Some of the biologics that we're testing are new. Actually, one of the products is not even marketed yet. Their stability is still being explored. So for 4 of the molecules, we have some very solid data temperature profile data, but for 1, it is still being developed. So our limitations with the biologic molecules are much tighter. So as we move forward into that, what we're looking at is less load flexibility with the first load, as we had a more lenient data temperature profile. We could load in room temperature, ambient temperatures on the dock. We're looking at biologics loading in a chill room. So we're actually doing the load process, unpack all of the labeling, temp tailing, everything is done in the chill room, staging chill room, and it's taken about 20 feet straight to the container. The container is running, and we calibrate that container for 24 hours before we load it with the material. So for right now, we are using the most stringent guidelines we can for the biologics study. This is in process right now, and we received that, we sent that out the end of last year. It came back January 9th of this year. We have processed all the logistics data from the biologics study, and everything is solid and tight. I can't share the data yet, as this study is still being documented, and the bioanalytical studies are going on right now. I'll talk a little bit about the measurements. We measure, of course, shock and vibration as well. Temperature, we did 20-minute intervals with the Sensitech temp tails. Since we were using GPS monitoring, we were able to monitor that live, watch that all the way across the ocean, location, humidity, and temperature. So very nice, and we have access to their system, so we are able personally and individually to have our own logons and check that any time of day, and communicate that to the project team. Again, the Locatrax Geo GPS Temtal, and we're going to start documenting humidity because with biologics is something that we're more concerned about than we were with the prior molecule. Little information on the Temtals, if you're not familiar with them, these are the ones we use, the Temtal 4s. They have the humidity sensor. Temperature range is -30 to 70 C, 10 to 100% relative humidity. I will tell you quickly on the results, we never saw any temperatures go below 2 C at all in any of our studies in the past 2 years. We have seen some very short temperature excursions above 8, up to about 12. They are well within the data temperature profile in the USP guidelines. So this is the GeoTemtal. This is something that we've used in our most recent study and a newer product for us. Found it to be very reliable, easy to install. It's probably about twice the size of a regular Temtal. We just put them in a packaging sleeve, and we used 3 in this study. I think moving forward as we write our SOPs, we'll probably use 1 on each load, as long as we find this to be a validated process. Like I said, this is still being approved. They have a 60-day runtime. You can set them up on any interval you want. We set this up on a 1-hour interval this time because we were concerned with data tracking, and of course the more data you log, the less your battery life lasts. So we decided to go with a longer time. We were just grateful to be able to track this live and be able to see it every hour. I think as we move forward and get more comfortable with the limitations of the GeoTemtal, we'll probably move to a tighter tracking time. So there's a few benefits there. You can see the cost for this run was 2.5% of what we paid for the Locatrax. So obviously moving forward, this is probably what we'll move toward unless we find other opportunities. It's still being ironed out. So right now, like I said, the logistics process has been approved and validated for the biologic study. So everything on our side as far as shock, vibration, temperature, humidity, timing, as far as it took, as far as, you know, from port to port, door to door, everything there was well within the expectations. The things that we'll be looking at in our biologic bioanalytical process are stability, robustness, purity, potency, uniformity. We'll also be doing physical analysis, of course, for clarity, appearance, color, and particulates. There are a team of about 50 scientists working on these samples right now. I think we sent out something like 500 different samples, different variations of formulations, packaging, vials, pens, cartridges, every configuration that we can get our hands on. So just for your information, we are shipping expired material. This is not marketed material that's sent. I happen to work in the warehouse and have access to a lot of expired material. We also get anything that is returned or overages. So we keep all of that material and we use that to pack out loads like this, test studies. So the project completion for the biologic evaluation is the end of Q1. We expect all those results to be in by the end of March. We hope to be able to execute and start to launch in the second quarter of 2017. So it's on the tails of the prior study and of the more stable molecule, and we're hoping to be able congruently to be shipping all of them out by the end of the year. We are launching countries on a needs basis, so looking at the countries that have the demand that would fit this model. Of course, I said we're sending 40-foot reefers. Those contain 18 pallets. We can also we're validated for 20-foot reefers, which contain about 8, 9 pallets. Japan is a market that we have run into some physical challenges with just because of the space and the logistics around their building. They actually could not accommodate a 40-foot reefer due to the fact that they just didn't have a long enough driveway. So we switched to we validated a 20-foot reefer, and we made some physical changes at their facility, but those are some of the things that we've had to look at. We were actually using a pallet jack to go out and get pallets off of a 40-foot reefer. When you run into, when you work forward into the biologics, we don't have the levity to be moving things in ambient conditions outside from one location to another. So we made some physical changes to their facility so that they'll be able to receive 40-foot reefers. Those are actually complete now, and have worked very closely with them to be able to make this a smooth transition. So like I said, we are evaluating based on needs. We work closely with our parental group and our planners to look at what their needs are for the year. Ocean planning does take a little more advanced planning on the parental side and the supply chain side. So it's been a great opportunity for logistics to partner and really bridge the network between parental, packaging, quality, regulatory. Regulatory has been very involved in this process, in our annual planning. But I can't say that there has been anyone that we've approached, any country that we've approached this idea with that hasn't been really excited about the opportunity, especially just the lack of the carbon footprint, but definitely the spend. So there was a question yesterday in the panel that I spoke in. The savings for 2015 was $1.7 million. So that was from October to December. So the projected savings for 2017 is $17 million. So we're just talking about 4 countries right now. So, we ship internationally to hundreds of countries. There's probably, a small subset of that get enough of a flow and demand for this process to take off immediately. But as we move forward, this is something that we'll be considering when we actually have our project managers and our planners working this into their pipeline and their spend for their molecules as they move forward, project planning with new molecules at Lilly. So a big paradigm shift in thinking and planning and risk. I will say, since we started the process in 2015, we have not had one TrackWise, we use TrackWise to document our events and temperature excursions, breakage, loss. We have not had one TrackWise event over a level 1. So we've not had any loss of material. So like I said, some small excursions above 8 during the loading process. Loading takes up to 4 hours. We haven't seen anything longer than that. No loss of material, no quarantine or hold on anything, no breakage. Has been shown so far to be a very safe and reliable mode of transit. And will be part of the planning for our future molecules. So we are still working out, what kind of supplies we'll use. Like I said, all of the, for the biologics, for the runs that have already been validated, that we'll be using what I discussed already, but biologics, because of the sensitivity of those molecules, we're still looking at options that would make sense to get us as much data as we can, and tighter data as far as location and temperature.